Hi, I'm Tim Larson. Today's tutorial covers the ins and outs of coloring a comic book page. In that, I'll describe how you can go from line ink drawing, like so, black and white, to coloring it in with like rough patches of color that don't quite meet up with the edges, but they get the idea across. And then finally, using layers and layer masks in Photoshop, you'll be able to finalize your comic book page like so. It's real fun. I hope you enjoy this tutorial. If you want to see more of my work, it's on my website, www.timsnotebook.com/comic books. And without any further delay, let's get into it.
Okay, here is my explanation on how to color relatively quickly the page that's been prepared. This is a single page. Sometimes I'll work in groups. I'll gang it together, have several pages in a row. This time around it's just one page. I have the page that's going to have the color, and next to it on another file, I'll click that. This is the page with the flats. So you notice like all the sections have been sectioned out and given a gray tone, and this will come into play later to separate the color. Right now I am going to work in a way where I lay in the rough color here based upon a previous page and refine those edges of the rough color that I make using the flats here. So first of all, let's start with this. Let me explain what the layers are here. We have, if you have seen the other tutorial here, we have the colored lines. Okay, and that simply is they're still black lines, but I'm going to make them into lines that could be any color I want them to be. Alright, and then here we have a layer with the black lines. Alright, and then this layer here is just simply a layer where we can pick out a panel. Like if I click this, okay, so if I click this panel here, I turn on everything else, you can see how we're selecting everything inside that panel. In fact, going a little bit beyond the lines here. There's one element that I'm missing, is I need to have the gutters put in. I don't have gutters yet, so let me make that. I'll create a new layer, and that's just as simple as going to the line layer with the black lines and select what would be the gutter out here, and let's add to that selection. Okay, let's look around, make sure we got this. Is a pretty simple page. It's only 3 panels. It's almost like a splash page. It's the first page of my comic book, Mayfield 8. And what I'm going to do here in this layer is I'm going to fill this up with white. I'm going to have white gutters in here. Now I click this, I want to go a little bit beyond that, so let me expand my selection, modify, go select, modify, expand, and in a document that is 300 pixels per inch, 3 pixels is good. Okay, there you see I went a little bit further. Now let me shut off all the other layers here, and then I will use the paint bucket tool, and I selected white, and I'll just fill it with white. Let's back off here. Let's see what we got. You see that? Now we'll go ahead and lock that, and I'll turn on my black lines layer, and I'll make this into multiply. What multiply means is that the white areas are going to be transparent. And we'll go ahead and lock that layer. There, let's move that in so you can see all this here. So, okay. And then we have the colored lines layer. What I'll do with this one is I'll select color range. In this case it's white, and then we'll invert that. And what that does, you see how it very finely selects all the black line area. And I'll actually delete this layer, create a new layer, and then create a layer mask using add layer mask button. Okay. And if it's successful, you'll see this little mask layer with all this black in it. Now it's blank inside here, so let's go over here and let's put that black line back in. We'll just fill everything in black. Okay. So now it looks the same, but I can go into this layer. Let's say okay. Let's say I want to go red. I colored that red there. Disable layer mask. Let me show you what that looks like. See, that's what I really did. Now let's enable layer mask, because you can't see it, but underneath it I'm able to color these, like here's teardrops here. I'll go ahead and color them. Okay. The gutters, let's go ahead and finish the work on that. I'll call it gutters. And just to show you again, that's what the gutters look like. Okay. And then we have one more layer I'm going to make above the panel pick layer. And I'm just going to give this a name. I'm going to call it color. Okay. And for now, let's take that color layer and we'll just fill it with white. There. Okay. So I got my layers all ready. And so when you have it at this point, what you want to do is go to File, Place, and go pick out your last page, or you could make a collage of pieces that work with this page, the right kind of color choices. In this case, I'm going to take the last page that I worked on, which is in my file, and that would be page 29. There. I'm sorry, but my window's too big here, so place. And then it'll go through this thing here. Okay. Then we go, okay. And boom, there it is. That's, you don't need to make it quite so big. Make it smaller. Okay. And then let's take this layer and move it up to the front there. And do a little customization here. We'll rasterize that layer. And then we'll lock the paint pixels on that. So I can still move it around, but I can't accidentally paint on this layer. This layer is only for looks. Alright. So now I got this temporary layer above that's going to be my reference point for color. And what I'll do next is I'll go in and pick out, go with the paintbrush and hit the Option key on a Mac, and then the Command key with a right click gives me choices of what layer I want to go. I'll go to color, so I'm down in the color layer here. I'll go ahead and fill that in. And here's an important point here. I'm not trying to stay inside the lines, obviously. I'm picking a little bit more tan. Here, let me zoom in a bit so you can see what I'm working on here. Okay. And again, the right click color. When I'm using the eyedropper tool, you can sample the top layer, but you're not necessarily in that layer. Okay, so I'm sampling this layer in order to get my parts colored. Oh, that looks a lot darker. There we go. And what I do is I call this the rough color phase. Here's the guy's jacket. Oh, here's his pants. You can see just the edge, but I got pants right here. This panel is a continuation. This page is a continuation of what's happening on this page. All right. So I think you get the general idea that I'm just picking off colors here and playing around with them and getting stuff filled in, not trying to stay within the lines, but getting it to the point where I'll shut off that sample layer that I'm using, but getting this to the point where from a distance the colors are right and everything just kind of looks okay.
Okay.
I'm going to fade into
this is, the page
and
now
come back to it when it's all finished.
rough colored. That's what I call it. And as you can see, it's kind of artsy. The sky is sloppy. The people are sloppy. Everything's sloppy, sloppy, sloppy. But here's the thing. You zoom away. The page starts looking like the way I wanted it to. I did a few things that were little extra, like for example, I went down with these people here. I used the lasso tool like so, and I lassoed roughly around where I wanted, and I changed the exposure on that like so. I'll just here we go. Oops, excuse me, I'm in the wrong layer. Okay. There. I did that kind of a thing to that area. Let's just cancel that, take that out. But that's what I did down there, and in the right down here as well. And basically it's a process of picking out a brush and going in and just the color picker and just getting the colors in there that you want to have put in there. Oh, I forgot a few things. There's some shoes here. Let's I don't know, just give something. The lady's gonna have lighter shoes. Let's give her blue shoes. There we go. And it's just a process of going around. You probably can't see what I'm doing here. Let me zoom in way into what I'm doing. Okay. Like the motorcycle handlebars are nearby.
Here's the pants. Let's color pick that and just kind of fill that in. My opacity setting is at 50% because it gives me more of a watercolor kind of look, and I don't have to worry about putting in anything that's really garish. It kind of gradually steps in. Like this stuff is behind that motorcycle, so let's go like that. And so it's just a process of getting it close, getting the colors I kind of like, and paying attention to the overall look. I see this guy's boot here hasn't been done. Let's go here. And this is a good example what this process is. You pick a color, you use the brush tool, and I believe it's command right click, and that's what I call this layer color. 50%. You keep on doing it, and it'll be 100%. Just like that. And let's keep on coloring the sole of the boot. Like there, and there's some pipes here. Let me zoom back a little bit. Okay, so let me take like a blue for chrome. Okay. Let's kind of do the bright work on this motorcycle. There's the fender. The frame is supposed to be yellow, so I'll go put that in. You can't really see because the desert sand behind him is yellow. But that's okay. Let's just keep on going here. And there's the, I don't know what that thing is in the back, that little tank. Is that supposed to be the oil reservoir, maybe, or the, oh, it's the box for the generator. There's always like a little box thing that's behind the carburetor. Maybe in the comment section, those of you who drive motorcycles, you can tell me what that is on a Harley. So anyway, yeah, we got the color layer. There, that's what that looks like. See, like, so without the gutters, it's a mess. That's the color. Now let's turn on the gutters. That's it with the gutters. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and turn on the black lines. There, that's with all the lines there. And then finally, like here, I'll show you. You can really see it up here. I'll turn on the colored lines, which are... Alright. Now, what you want to do is make sure that this is the same size as a document that's flatted. Okay, that's with the flats. That's with the color. Sometimes when you work in the color mode, it gets very, very high in the file size. The file size measured in megapixels. Right now it's at 51. That's fine. Sometimes you get 400, 500, 600 megapixels, and your computer can get kind of sluggish. One solution is to take this whole thing and temporarily, while you're working on it, make it 50% in size. If you do so, this layer, the color layer, is fine for blowing up to 100% size. However, the other stuff, like the black lines and the colored lines, you'll want to save the original high resolution document with the the full size to add in later, because there's a degradation when you take something that's line work, you shrink it down, then blow it back up again, and you can get some dithering. That's where the edges don't look like edges of ink. They get a little roughness, like a pixel, the zigzaggy checkerboard kind of look. So, but in this case, I'm just doing one page, so everything here my color page and my flats page are the same size. Another note I'd like to make is I go to my desktop here. My desktop is where I work on these pages. So even if I'm making in here ME Mayfield 8 color, I'm making a comic book page, I try and keep the file that I'm working on away from the files of the finished pages. So I'll go to Mayfield 8 issue 2. Here it is. And here's all the files for each page. And in here is page 1, but I'm saving this in case something bad happens to the file I'm working on, the computer freezes up. I'll lose time, the time I'm working on this, but I didn't lose the artwork. The artwork exists, not colored yet, but it exists in the black line version here. Here, okay, I opened up the file, ME color. Here's where I can play around and have my flats and my color, all the stuff that's going to be working on in a preliminary state. So that's a good habit to get into, to kind of keep things separated just in case something bad happens. So you can't plan for every contingency, but what you can do is at least make sure you're not using the one and only file you have of your artwork. Okay, so let me run down. These are flats that are done for somebody for me, and basically they're sectioned out parts that will make everything neat. Let me shut off all the other layers here. You can see how we got the first layer, second layer, a little more in, third layer, fourth, fifth, and so on. And finally the background is just solid. And you can do it in any method. I prefer just using a simple grayscale. Now we want to take all these layers here, and again, I can't emphasize too much, they're the same size as on here. All these layers, and we're going to move them over to the other document. So you can just simply hold the shift key until you got all these highlighted, and then a right click where the name is, I believe, yeah. Then you choose duplicate layers, and then we'll give you a choice here to duplicate, and in this case I have ME color. If I didn't do anything, it duplicated here, you duplicate within the same document. But let's go to ME color. Alright, and we'll hit OK. And at this point I don't really need this anymore, but in case there's problems, I'll just hang out with it. Okay. Now you see I have these layers I just threw in here, and they're taking over. You don't see the color anymore, and that's because they're on top. And we still have the numbering order. That's good. Now what we want to do is on each one of these layers that we put in, we want to highlight one by one the thumbnail of the layer, right click and select the pixels, okay, and then turn that into a layer mask by hitting the add layer mask button. And if you did this right, the earlier ones will have a lot of black in them, and the next ones will be bigger and bigger and chunkier and chunkier. Let's go down and do this to each layer here. Again, click the thumbnail, right click, select the pixels. This is for layer 2, and then a layer mask, and keep going down here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Select pixels, hit mask, select pixels, layer mask. What this is doing is taking, okay, let's just here, let's just look at this one layer. Okay, what this is doing, it's taking everything that has been drawn on this layer and hiding anything that has not been drawn, so that when you go in and color in this layer, you'll only see what's inside. Okay? Now you might want to ask yourself, why didn't you just start putting this in and then start coloring it as well? And the reason for that is that the way I think about stuff is that I would rather work on a rough color layer that has everything in it, so that I can get an idea of a sense of unity, a sense of painterliness, a sense of composition right off the bat. When you're working on one layer at a time, like if you were just working on this layer and coloring in these grays, it's very limiting. And it to me, it's just too many components to keep straight, if you understand what I'm saying. But this is becoming a little clearer as I show you the steps here. Okay. So anyway, I was on layer 5 here. Like I said, select pixels, create a layer mask, and here, select pixels, create a layer mask. Now, the next step is we'll take this color layer and duplicate it. In this, you can just drag into the what do they call that thing? The create a new layer panel. Okay. You drag it into a create a new layer icon, and hey, you get a copy. Now, move this copy up until it's above your first layer that has a mask, and then hit Command E. On a Mac, that's a little apple symbol or cloverleaf symbol, and E. Now merge down. It'll give you a choice to apply or preserve. You want to preserve the layer mask that's beneath it. Apply just means that you're not going to have the mask property anymore. It's just going to be a patch of color. But you want to preserve so that you'll keep that mask property. Let's go ahead and show what I just did. I just took all that. Well, the first layer is white, and it goes darker and darker shades of gray, so that the white layer is no longer white. It's now been replaced by all these patches of color. And you can kind of see where I'm getting at now. Now I'm taking this color layer, making several copies of it, and cutting it up. Let's do this again to the next one. Okay, now we got color copy is going to merge down to layer 2, and I hit Command E again, preserve. All right, and you may not see anything happening here right away, but let's just turn everything on, and maybe that way will be more clear. Okay, moving up. Now I'm going to go down to layer 3. I'm getting rid of the grayscale stuff. Okay, there we go. Make another copy. Oh, wait. One more. Go up a little bit. There we are. Okay, and then the last one, I'll just go ahead and just go down and preserve. All right. It doesn't look like anything's been changed, but let me show you now. I go into panel pick, and I'll select this panel, and we'll zoom into that. All right. And again, and this is a really important point here on the panel pick. The actual selection is a little bit more than the inside of the panel, just to make sure that my coloring is going to go all the way to the edge. Let me also, I forgot to turn on the colored lines. Let's do that as well. Okay. And now Let me pick out the brush. And we'll go with a 50% brush. And this is a process of, let's pick out this color in the background here of the truck, okay? And then I believe it's Command right click. And you want to go to the, not the black line layer, because we already got the black. We're not coloring that layer in, but we're coloring layers 1 through 6. So here's, that happens to be layer 5. Okay, let's go in and scrub, you know, go nearby and fill everything in. Okay, now let's go to this hair here. We'll color pick it. Command right click. That's layer 4. Not sure if you're seeing that too well on the video screen, but you can hopefully tell if these flats were done right. They're separating stuff. I know this hand is different from his face. Let's pick that out. And that's on layer 4. Okay. Ah, there we go. I'm taking these colors and not changing them too much, but I am neatening things up. Sometimes, like the lower lip here, we'll pick that color out and we'll just kind of go under here. The more you fill out the color in the preliminary color stage, the rough color, the messy part, the easier this part is. Because then this is just a case of neatening everything up. Brown eyes, let's see, it's layer 2. Let's make it a little lighter down here. Okay. The sunglasses. The inside of the lens of the sunglass, I assume? Yes, okay. And then we'll hit the X button to get an alternative color. That's something I like to do. I like to pick out, like in this case, I hope you've seen that. Pick out light blue. Dark blue. Let's go to the frame. That would be on layer 2. Okay, and let's change the brush opacity to 100%. So now it's not just like it sounds. It's just going to be right. The color you put in is the color you're going to get. There we go. See, it's not too bad. I got a little sloppy right there, but that's all right. I have my, oh, see, it's not on this layer, but it's real easy to get to that layer. You just, again, command right click. That's layer 4. It's easier to do the command right click thing all the time than it is to try and remember, okay, that was layer 4, that was layer 3, that was, I don't even know what layer this is. Command right click, that's layer 5. You can choose, of course you can go to layer 6, but you're not going to see it because layer 5 sits on top of layer 6. There we go. And then we got the background here. That's layer 6, okay. And we got a little bit. Let's see. And now you can see how it's getting very clean and neat. These teardrops, that's layer 1. Let's give it a little bit of highlight there. Or sweat drops. He's not crying, he's sweating. This guy's, the setup on this page is, if you haven't heard me say it before, this scared guy, who's also right here, has made a promise to his friend to walk into this bar, this biker bar, and help him out with something. But earlier that day, he got into a fight with one of these bikers. He spray painted this guy's face. And he doesn't want to be found out. So that's the setup on this page here. He's duty bound by a promise to go into this biker bar. It's a flip view on the bottom panel here, and that's the setup. Let's see, deselect, and that's one thing about doing the panel pick. Just to finish here. All right, for some reason the outside got solid black. It doesn't have to be that way. I'm sorry about that. Usually they look like you know, like the middle part right here. But then you take the wand tool. When you select the panel pick layer and you pick it, it's exactly like it sounds. Like I picked that panel, therefore I'm going to color within there. If I didn't do that, my paintbrush would go off the edge and start coloring into the other panel, which I don't want to do. And again, you know, I can pick this panel. You notice that it's only the marching ants, the selection is only staying inside here. And conversely with that panel as well. This is an invisible layer you use as a tool when you finally flatten everything and you have your finished comic book page. You're not going to see that. It either gets thrown in the trash or it gets covered up by the other layers, whichever. But then, okay, one last thing here about the colored lines. Let's see here. Let's go in here. All right. I'm on the colored lines layer. I'll pick my paintbrush. And I have it at 50% opacity, but here I'll show you what I'm... There. You can do that, or you can keep it at 100% if you want. Definitely no ambiguity. You want the lines to definitely be solid colors. But that's the advantage on that you can do. One last thing, and that is I want to mention is you can do a layer on top of everything, and I call this I give it my name. I call it Shine Over Line. And when you flatten your comic book page, you might want to keep this a separate layer and the black lines a separate layer, because what this is, let me just choose 20% very soft brush. Let's say I wanted to show some dust in here, okay? The brush is set at 20%. Oh, that's not the right color. Let's back up here. Let's pick there we are. Okay, you can see how it's over everything, and that, like if you have a car with the headlights, you can use white and that, or bright yellow, and that has a nice effect. It's really easy to overdo this, so you want to kind of be a little easy with it, and it's also tricky if you start putting this kind of thing in your comic book. You're going to have it on every page, and just be aware of that. And then when you flatten these layers, I might want to use techniques of like selecting, like let's say I had all this dust over that, but I didn't want the truck to be in the dust. So what I would do then is go to layer 3, and then when you select the layer mask thumbnail, you can say add mask to selection there, and now go back up to the Shine Over Line layer and either hit clear or get the eraser tool, and you see it's not a perfect system though, because now you gotta go in a little bit more. You could go to black lines and take the magic wand, and you're selecting, there we go. It just so happens it's that, and you're going to select the inverse, then go up to that Shine Over Line with the eraser again, just on that part. There we go. Now it's starting to look like something. There. Okay, let's back up a little bit. There we go. So that's the kind of thing, if you do experiment with covering up everything, even the black line, with either dust or lens flare, light, things like that, lighting effects, headlights on cars, you're going to have to think about going in and erasing out or masking out parts that would be in the foreground or would not be affected by that. So that's all there is to it about the coloring process. To recap here, we have the flats, okay, which are shades of gray, and they go, the top layers are the most detailed to the more basic stuff on the bottom layers, and we transfer this over to the color page, which is now turning into the final page. All of these layers of flatting got duplicated and moved into this color document, and then one by one these layers, through select pixels and create layer mask, got turned into layer masks. Can't see it, plural. And one last word here is before you flatten out a page, sometimes, this is kind of esoteric, but like on my next couple pages down in this very comic book, I'm going to have words. There's music in the bar, and Steppenwolf, Magic Carpet Ride's going to be playing, and you don't know what we could find. Why don't you come with me, little girl? It's going to snake in and out in the bar behind the people. So that's a case where I'm going to have to be careful about how I flatten down the comic book page with the color included. I want to retain some of the masking properties so that when I put the words in, the words can move in and out between the people rather than going in and trying to, cut out parts of the words so they fit. Again, like in superhero comic books, you might have a sound effect that goes behind people. Something's in front of the sound effect. So you really got to think about that that property if you're going to go ahead and do something like that. If not, if this is all going to be its own thing and the word balloons are going to always be above it, the sound effects are always going to be above all the artwork, then you don't really have to worry about that. But that's just one little factor to think about as you get more comfortable with using layers and making them do what you want.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I know it was a little bit long, dealing with the many different layers and layer masks and compacting it all down to a colored comic book page. And we got in a little in-depth there, going at 50 minutes plus, but there's a lot of information there. If you have any questions, put them in the comments section here. I'll be sure to come back and answer them as best I can. You can also go back and check my website if you would want to see my work. It's at www.timsnotebook.com/comic books. Also, I have for sale on my site Mayfield 8 issue 1 if you want to pick up a copy for yourself. It's in full color, printed on very high quality paper. They're $5 plus shipping, so feel free to hit that shop tab and get a copy for yourself. Had a lot of fun here. Please come back again, watch the next tutorial, and I hope to see you again real soon.